cameras the other way.
I'm also trying like a new light. Like, look
Hi.
at how cool this is. It's only like
Yes, I
200
discovered the
rupees.
joy of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have mine here because otherwise it's relatively dark.
Yeah, I'm also putting mine on, but I can't keep my glasses on with it because then it's like you
Ah,
can
it
see how
reflects
my
off
glasses.
of.
Yeah. Hi, Leanne.
How- Hi, how are you? It's so good to see you.
I know, likewise. So
It
let's
feels like forever.
I know. Let's address the nepotism claims. Leanne and I did go to school together, so this is definitely like a an old connection that we're both reviving.
Yes,
So thank you so much
for
for
sure.
joining.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting. I'm
I'm so
really looking forward to this.
I'm so glad that you're so like prolific with the content that you put out on your on your page,
Thanks.
because I feel like
Thank you.
there's too many people who are just like the blind leading the blind, like we're all just
Right.
each other gyan instead of actually talking to experts. So I'm so happy to have you
Right. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm enjoying everything you're doing, by the way.
here.
Fantastic stuff I've been watching. Good, good, good. So nice to know that we are all doing this, no? All of our
I know,
people from different places doing different things.
I
It's
know,
amazing.
seriously. So what gave me the idea of this conversation was that I'd actually put up a post that I thought didn't need a trigger warning, and a friend DM'd me and said, you should have put a trigger warning, and then we sort of
Right.
disagreed about it. So then I wanted to ask an
Right.
expert because again, both of us were just sharing our opinions and not really trying to define anything. So
Of
to
course.
get started, if you're okay to just jump right in,
Yes.
um,
Please go for it.
tell us what triggers are. I mean, I feel like we all see it online, but what does it really mean?
Right. So triggers are different for everyone. What I define triggers are psychologically is something that takes you back to a traumatic experience, right? It can be something sensory like a thought, a smell. Say someone in a bad marriage may have a certain smell that is triggering because it reminds them of a person. It may be someone's perfume, it may be the environmental smell. Now, someone who is in a school that was traumatic with bullying might see something like those jungle gym things in school and get triggered with those memories from childhood that are triggering. Basically, anything that takes you back to a traumatic experience and makes you either feel like you're reliving it or experiencing it is something that we call a trigger. Though, of course, now it's used very casually where people say they feel triggered for any number of things, which may be true. I'm not saying that they might not be triggered, but each one's triggers could be different depending on their experience with it and how much trauma was caused by it.
Yeah,
Right?
so I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, is there a level of severity to that we need to attach to the word trigger? Like, I mean, I know it has become almost like a joke, like, oh, I'm so triggered,
Right, of
which
course.
is not fair to people who are genuinely trying to deal with triggers. So
Right.
where and how do you draw the line between a trigger and an I don't want to say
A
overreaction.
relatability.
Yeah.
I call it a relatability. So, like certain people who come into the clinic and you have a thing where you're talking to them and they say, I feel attacked. And the first time I heard the word attacked, I'm not very good with my lingo. So, someone said, I feel attacked. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't intend to attack you, but what made you feel attacked? And then she explains that it's the cooler term for relatable. And then I said, oh, okay, because for me, attacked is you are getting triggered, right? As opposed to relating.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, if someone is relating to something or remembers something without the heavy intensity, the emotionality of it, it's not really severely triggering them.
Yeah.
Generally, we look at triggers as something that is severe because it is pulling up something traumatic,
Right.
right? But this intensity can also reduce over time and through healing. So, someone who was bullied as a child might still feel triggered if they have to see their bully, either in the apartment complex or whatever. However, that intensity may reduce over time, but that person may still be triggering for the individual who got bullied as a child. So that could also be a trigger. You could have something like body shaming that could be a trigger. Someone talking about it could trigger someone who isn't so used to the idea of it. But if I may go on a little bit extra, so the way I look at it is we all have some level of managing our own triggers, right? Which comes from self soothing. Every content creator out there can't be highly aware of everyone's triggers and what triggers them because different things trigger different people. And if we start being conscious of how we are putting out our content intentionally, what is the intentionality behind it, as well as what is the real intentionality while we consume it, that in a way would help you understand if you're being triggering or getting triggered in the process.
Okay.
Right?
So I have so many questions, but I'm going to go back
for it.
now to that bully example that you used, right?
Right,
Like,
please. I want to.
bully. I can completely understand that. Like, I can empathize with that.
Right.
But okay, so in that situation, if someone were to read a post that said, that headlined something bullying, could that be enough to trigger somebody if they were very severely bullied? Just the idea of a conversation around bullying?
It could, if they haven't dealt with it and if it's been severely traumatic. Right?
Okay.
Now, a person who hasn't been bullied might put it up saying, oh, this is something that happens. But someone who has been bullied will look at it saying, oh my God, they're talking about this. This is my life. And I'm feeling more overwhelmed because in that moment, the intensity feels real. This person is sharing my story. Right? And as much as I understand it from the person who's experiencing it, because being someone who feels triggered is it's excruciating on any level, right? But again, it's also important to say, hey, I'm being triggered by something. It's not happening to me right now. It is something that's triggering something that once happened, but the fact that it's affecting me is something that means I need to work on it. And when I say work on it, heal from it.
Yeah.
Right? This is something that I can't keep letting happen because people are going to talk about bullying. People are going to talk about body shaming. And in our society, it is so common to bring up mental health. We don't really know what could be triggering. Sometimes our post itself might trigger something in somebody, even though that's not the intention.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was going to ask you again from like two different perspectives. One from the perspective of someone who's consuming social media, and the other from the perspective of a content creator. So firstly, from the perspective of someone who uses social media, I mean, there's so much out there, right? Like every day you hear about a suicide, you hear about, violence, religious-based violence, all of that, racism. So how do we stay informed with the world and the cruelty that's going on in it, while also managing the fact that we might come across graphic images or graphic descriptions or graphic conversations, and basically how do you manage that? How do you stay in touch with the news without getting upset all the time?
So one of the things that I do consciously, and I think I've been doing this ever since I became a therapist, I work with trauma. So my general day has a lot of traumatic stories. And I do not want to come back home and have to consume more unless it's research based or something like that. So one of the things I do is I'm very intentional with the news I consume and the people I follow. Right? It's very clear. Someone is being overly, like, let's say, even when the protests were happening, right? There was constant information about it, and it can be as exhausting to consume it as it is to be putting it out there. And now, if that's something I don't want to see, I may either know which person is sharing it and not look at their stories for a bit, or I might say, hey, if this person is unimportant, I'll mute their stories or whatever for a while. That choice is mine. And I think that's a part of a both sides of the coin process. Where on one side, when something traumatic has happened, you want more information. And the idea is the more I know, the more comforted I'll feel, especially with the pandemic, right? The more I know about COVID, the more happy I feel, the more safe I feel, except that's contradictory. Because if you say you know more information, it's also this many cases are rising, this many people are dying, this many things are happening, I can't travel, I can't do this, it's too much. But if we say I will consume this much of it and not more because I have enough information, right? I need to decide how much information is enough for me. And when am I going overboard with a false sense of security in knowing enough, right? So I know the headlines, I read it, but I don't have to get invested in it, right? At the end of the day, it's each one looking at TRPs if you look at it.
That's true. So, that's something that I learned to do also, was use the mute option very freely, because there were definitely people that were they're discussing very important issues, and I completely understand that, but it's too much to constantly hear about it. So I have definitely started using that.
And it's not one person, it's multiple people.
Yeah, especially when you're in a certain circle and everybody's kind of passionate about the same things. So friends, you heard it here first. Just mute people. It's great.
Yes, by all means, freely. I like the word freely.
Yeah, and you can mute them. They won't get a notification.
Yeah.
You will, and then the thing is, you can also go and actually look at their stories when you have the time and when you're prepared for it. So when you
And the
want to
bandwidth.
consume that, yeah, when you want to consume that content, you can always go to their page and then watch whatever it is you want to watch and catch up. So I really like that. From a
Yes.
content creator's perspective, now if you have a public profile and a wide following and you want to have difficult conversations, like I've seen a lot of these accounts that are massive, right? Like millions of followers, and they talk about
Right.
extremely difficult things in great detail.
Right.
Now, anything could be triggering to anyone. So how do you
For sure.
manage trigger warnings without sort of like bombarding everybody with trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning all the time?
Right. So generally what I've noticed is most accounts have a similar sort of profile. Like if you look at my account, it's not one of those things that only has quotes about them. It's also a step-by-step sort of coping mechanism. You know what you're getting when you sign up for the page, right? When you follow the page. So generally, when you look at the overview of the page, what are they talking about? Is it content you want to consume? Is it content you don't want to consume? That is the choice of the person subscribing to it. And secondly, if your page is going to talk about heavy stuff, you can't keep giving trigger warnings, because at what point do you say, I'm overwhelmed with creating trigger warnings? Because there are so many things you need to be sensitive about. But can you possibly be sensitive about everything? Right? Because you don't know what is sensitive for whom. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. Like I say, as therapists, for the greater part of it, we are non judgmental. And in session, it's almost an unconditional non judgment. You can hold that space for an hour and a half. But when we come into our personal lives, when we leave our professional space, we are with family members, and it's hard to hold that space of being non judgmental because we are also real people with real lives outside of it, right? And if as therapists, we have to make the distinction for people who don't really understand or know how much has to go behind censoring it. You can't always put out a trigger warning. So my point is, if you're putting out triggering, I mean, not you, like people in
Yeah,
general
definitely.
are putting, yeah, content creators are putting out triggering stuff. Maybe to give it, your bio is there, you can explain a little bit about what your page offers so people know what they're getting into. Of course, if it's something relating to abuse, if it's something relating to violence, for sure, because that is likely to trigger even people who might not have experienced it, right? It could create vicarious trauma simply by viewing it, simply by seeing a building blow up. It's overwhelming. You don't have to feel it. You can feel it inside, right? Something squelches inside of you when you view it. And for that, 300% you need trigger warnings. But
Yeah.
for things like, say, body shaming, things like bullying, which may seem less intense, for lack of a better word, then probably you don't need to. But to just put out a title saying this is what we're talking about. So if someone chooses to look at the content, they're doing it by choice. Consent is already given,
Okay, got it. And
right?
this actually reminds me of a great quote that I read that a friend had shared, which said, what happens to you is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal from it. So
Yes.
what is your take on that? On someone who maybe is constantly triggered but not getting help?
So we see a lot of that on social media, right? Whether we want to or not, there are a lot of people who talk about it. And my point is, yes, anxiety is a real thing. Depression is a real thing. There's no point, like you have the haters who are going to say, no, it's not real, it's all in your head. But it isn't really in your head. But you do have the power to respond to it. You do have the power to get to a place that is higher than yourself and say, if I need help on this because I am feeling triggered, I'm not seeking help because I need to be in therapy. I'm seeking help because it's causing problems for my daily functioning. It's causing issues for my way of being. I'm feeling, hostile towards people, irritable. I'm waking up feeling sick. Now, people like this, I would highly recommend actually seeking professional help, because that does make it fit, it does make it work for you. However, I'm also going to say that a lot of people, like I have clients who've tried out multiple therapists and said they don't work and then they come in. Every therapist may not be a perfect fit, but it's okay to try and shop. We call it shopping for therapists. So you shop till you find the therapist who fits you and you work with them. And generally, in my experience, once you find someone who fits you, it's a beautiful experience. So completely worth healing, and you can grow from anything. So that's something I believe. You can't choose what trauma happened to you because all of us have it in different forms, but it happens. You may not have control, and that's awful and absolutely terrible. And I wish we had a world that did not have so much of it. But if and when it does happen, there is help, there are options, it isn't the end of the road,
Yeah, I
right?
fully agree. So what about people who maybe don't have access to therapy, who maybe can't afford it? Is it possible to heal without a therapist's help?
It is possible to heal if they're committed to it, if they're probably reading up on it. And the one thing that I really like about India right now is that we have so many free resources coming up, not just through things like Instagram, but in regional languages. You have books, you have information, you have videos, YouTube videos by the dozen, more than the dozen, you have by the million. You have, there is just so much out there. You have suicide helplines which don't just deal with suicide. A lot of people see that as the title and say, but I'm not suicidal yet. And the
Yeah.
idea isn't about being suicidal, it's they offer free services that can be utilized, and to please seek them, because you don't really need therapy if you're not that far gone. And if you can't afford it, 100%, there are bodies that there are lots of NGOs doing free work. But it's nice to get someone who will create that non-judgmental space, because generally when something bad happens to us, more than us hating on others, we're hating on ourselves, right? We internalize it. It becomes that awful space where you're working out of, you're your biggest enemy at that point. There's no one else who's creating that space for you.
Now I'm
And
feeling
two,
attacked.
and I understand what it means.
Yeah.
Thanks, and I'm reading about the lingo, huh? But
Yeah.
no, that's basically it, right? Being able to access that and say, hey, this is what's going on for me. And while I know it feels helpless and overwhelming, I have access to something that I can reach out to. A lot of free organization and quite a few therapists who also take on pro bono cases. Right now, a lot of people who are overwhelmed and may not be able to because of the caseload, but there are many organizations that offer it.
Yeah.
I think Asara is one that is extremely good.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Yeah, if you can send me a couple of
I will do that.
and links, I can
Yes,
like aggregate them
yeah,
after this video.
for
The
sure.
other question I had, now triggers, usually when you see something triggering, you get that immediate, like knee-jerk, unpleasant
Yes,
reaction. But there's also
yeah,
this feeling on social media that's like a slow burn or like a slow build-up,
yes,
where you're sort of constantly like, okay, each single post is not bothering you, but then like after
the
maybe an
multitude of
hour,
it.
you're just like, oh, just make it stop.
Yeah.
So how do you manage?
Like,
What is that, and how do you manage that?
so generally that's like the burnout, right? Because you're consuming it without, it's not bothering you, and then you're like, huh, I can consume a little more, and before you know it, it's got too much. So the way I look at it is look at it as something where you say, I know I'm not yet burnt out, but I can probably take maybe 2, 3 more of these posts, but I don't have to take 2, 3 more. So maybe cut it at 1 or 2 more extra posts and choose, like actually make the active choice to say, I'm done consuming this for today. If I can get off of social media, great. Or I'll get to an account that I actually want to follow that's more positive. Like I think the Good News Network or Good News Movement, one of my favorite sites. You have such lovely stuff on there. On a regular basis, I'm like, huh, that is news I want to see. It may
Yeah.
not be stuff that you're getting on your front pages, but it is phenomenal. And there are quite a few things like that. So generally, if something is overwhelming for me, I have a very clear thing. I have only so much time to give social media. I'm on it. I post my post, comment a little bit, and get off it.
Yeah.
But things like that, completely enjoy. That Good News Network or movement, I'm permanently on that. I'm like, huh, this I can see more of. It gives you joy.
Yeah,
And why not?
for me it's dogs. Like I follow so many accounts that are just dogs, and they're just like, it's like dogs from this angle. That's the whole account. Dogs from this angle. That is one breed of dogs, another breed of dogs. So that like
Makes
that.
me completely. Yeah. Narcos is my favorite. I don't know if you've seen Narcos, the Cocker Spaniel. Oh my God.
Really? Okay, I need to
He's
go check this
fluffy.
out.
He's adorable. He has Christmas photos. He has photos with puppies. I mean, with other puppies. And he
Yeah.
has pigs and ducks who are his soft toys.
Oh my
Cannot.
God, so cute. This is what I heard this great term called brain bleach. Like if you've just like seen something terrible and you just need like bleach your brain, just go look
Oh.
at the cute dog photos. Here's new lingo for you, brain bleach.
Yes, brain bleach. I'm
Although,
just saving
yeah,
it.
I don't know how many people use it though. I think maybe it's just like a niche
First time I'm
term.
hearing it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure I will hear it.
Let's make it
Everything
a
I think
thing.
I've heard. Yes, brain bleach. I
Yeah.
also have someone who used the term, and I hope she's watching, or if not, she'll show up. That spoke about her friend reaching emotional pubescence, and I'm like, I love it. Emotional puberty. You can grow. You may have been emotionally unavailable. You're getting to availability, and this is a thing. So I told her she's got to patent it because these are things we
Yeah,
need.
let's make t-shirts. Let's just make this a
Yes,
brand. That's awesome. So
completely
yeah,
bestseller.
the slow burn thing is something that affects me a lot personally.
Yeah,
So in that sense, I think I think I am doing the right things based on
yeah.
what you just mentioned. So that's good.
Can I?
The other thing
Sorry.
I wanted to ask, uh,
Can,
I've lost my train of thought now. Okay, but basically to
can I?
recap,
Huh.
basic some of the higher level points that you mentioned. Set a time limit for yourself. Acknowledge the burnout or the imminent burnout, and then either check out, get off, or like go look at some brain bleach content.
Doggy pictures.
Yeah, drawing pictures in terms of triggers, decide who you want to follow, mute if you need to, take time off if you need to, and then, view it when you're ready and when you have bandwidth. So
Right,
those are all super useful tips and tricks, I think, because also a lot of
right.
us talk about how the onus has to be only on the content creator to always call out
Be
and give
vigilant.
someone a heads up about triggers. And also, you
Right,
mentioned a lot of the free resources for people who
right.
maybe can't go to therapy and things like that. So those are all super useful. In terms of actually doing the healing, so these strategies that we've talked about are kind of like ways to take a step back, maybe to avoid and to like not even come across them. But let's say you do come across a trigger and you are feeling,
Right.
completely overwhelmed. What happens then?
So I did want to talk about this. I was going to interrupt you, and then I said, "Oh, should I? Maybe not." But thanks. I wanted to talk about this.
Same page.
So
Yeah.
one, I know really, I'm enjoying this wavelength. So one of the things that I say is when you're feeling triggered, before you go see the doggy pictures, ask yourself what is triggering you, right? Because it's coming from somewhere. I generally heavily recommend journaling because even if you're not journaling where you're writing, you're maybe doodling, you may be, just making a mess of your journaling page, which is perfectly normal. It's to allow that space to just say, hey, I'm doing something for me to understand what's going on the inside. So instead of shutting it down, saying, I don't want to consume this anymore, to say, where is this coming from? What is getting triggered? When I'm watching, like, say, especially with the recent deaths, a lot of people are feeling triggered with grief. They may not be suicidal, they may not be following the Black Lives Movement or having even, any friends of the Black Lives Movement or anyone who is really talking about it, but there's so much about it all over. And they say, but Leanne, we have nothing to do with this. Why are we getting triggered sitting in India? And my point is, it is mass grief, it is mass pain. And whether you want to feel it or not, you're going to feel it because it is another human being. And in this moment, you are relating to someone. Now, if you shut it down for yourself, you're not letting yourself process, right? And the scariest part, I think, with our emotions is letting ourselves process because then it means actually understanding where it's coming from. And the easiest thing for that is take a moment, pull out a journal. If possible, look at something called the feelings wheel, which is available on Google to identify what you're feeling, right? What makes it so discomforting? What makes it so overwhelming? Pay attention to that. What do you need in that moment to ease it out of you? What are the needs under the emotion? Say someone who's angry really wants to be heard and listened to. And in that moment, now someone else may not be able to listen to them. They call a friend and the friend just like, dude, your problems are so first world, I cannot listen to this. So in that moment, and that happens so often, right, where someone's just blown off because they have first world problems. And it may be first world to someone else, but for this person it may be real. And in that moment, to give that to yourself, hear what you're going through, listen to what you're going through, and give yourself that space. You want to feel comforted, allow yourself to comfort, allow yourself to self-soothe, right? So you may really want a hug. Someone else may be busy, may not know you want it. Ask for a hug. Worst case, hug a pillow, hug a pet, whatever it is. But give yourself that thing that you need in that moment. And that self-soothing will just bring it all down by so much. And then, of course, doggy videos and all of it. Like that completely
Yeah.
works.
I have
So,
definitely done this. Like I remember when I used to live
yeah,
alone in the US,
yeah,
and the physical contact was like the bare minimum. There was one day I was just feeling so lonely. Like I went up to my friend in the office and I was like,
yeah.
I just need someone to hug me for some time. And we just stood there in the break room and he hugged me and like the passers-by were like, what's happening? I was like, I don't care. I need this hug. I'm gonna ask for it.
Self-care for the win. That is perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
seriously.
used to have, so I had this friend who'd call me up saying, I'm leaving office, I'm coming by your place, I just need a hug. And she'd come by on her bike, she'd have a helmet on and she'd just be like, I need a hug. So we'd just be standing and hugging, and people would look at us saying, "What's going on?" We wouldn't care. There were no words exchanged. It was maximum hi and bye, and it would be the hug. But it made so much sense because whether or not I needed it at the end of my day, it still made me feel good. It made her feel good. She was the one who needed it more. And no questions asked. And it's that safe, healthy environment where you're giving yourself what you need. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
self-care.
I feel like we all talk about like, accountability partners and gym buddies and workout buddies and study
We need
buddies.
a mental health buddy.
Yeah, and you need a hug buddy. Like just make an
A hug
arrangement
buddy.
with someone.
Yes.
Someone who's close by.
Yes.
Because I mean, I have the luxury of availing hugs from my mother whenever I want. And like,
Right.
basically, I just
Those are
demand
the
it like
best.
6 to 8 times a day. But not everyone has that, right? So
Of
find a
course,
hug
yeah.
buddy, be non-creepy
Yes.
about it. Just, a friend that you trust and make that work. I really love that.
Yes,
Actually, on that
hug
note,
buddy.
there's a question here. Disha is
Yes.
asking, how do you identify a trigger? How do you know you're getting triggered and just not getting irritated with everything around you?
So a trigger generally would have a very high intensity in emotion. It's not something that would irritate you. It would be a whole lot more because it's almost like a panic attack. There's anxiety, there's almost an exhaustion, a need to avoid something because I'm going back to a place I don't want to go to. And I'm not going there by choice, but I'm feeling pulled into it, right? It's a almost sucked in, trapped feeling. That's generally how I say, something is a trigger, right? Like I remember I had a client who met with an accident, and her thing was every time she saw a red Celerio, it would trigger her because, yeah, I think it was a Celerio, just trying to remember. So, and it would trigger her, and she'd just be like, I cannot look at that vehicle because whether I want to or not, in that moment, I'm going back to the accident and I can't sit with myself. That is a trigger. Now, you may also find things on social media that trigger you, and you'll feel it. It may not be that deep, but if it is intense in any form, if it is causing you massive discomfort, it is a trigger,
Okay.
right? And like you said, the slow burn as well. Because
Yeah.
to a large extent, it may not be a trigger, but the amount and the intensity of consuming it becomes triggering.
Yeah, it just adds up slowly.
Yeah.
There's another one which I have a lot of thoughts about, but I'm going to let you answer it because you'll do a more diplomatic job than I will.
Please take it away first and then I'll take over.
The easiest way to become depressed is to sit and think, what about me? What about me? Try doing something for others. While I agree that helping others is a good thing, I think the bottom line is that at the end of the day, if you help someone else, you feel good. So you're helping someone else to feel good about yourself. And therefore, you're doing the whole what about me anyway. And secondly, if you don't take care of you, nobody else is going to.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like that thing, right? So I remember when I did this with, I think there were some students of mine who were saying the airline put your mask on first is such a stupid concept. And I said, not really, because no one knows the logic behind it, right? You're just told it, you're supposed to do it, we do it. I mean, supposedly if and when it happens. But the idea behind it is if I'm going to go put my mask on, let's say I have my family next to me and I say, okay, put your mask, put your mask. In my head, I'm saying, but I need to put my mask, so hurry up. And I'm not really making the effort to do a good job with putting on your mask because as long as it's on, and then I need to put mine on. But when I secure my mask, I feel safe. And when I'm seeing that you're safe, I'm intentionally choosing to see that you are safe in a healthy form. And like you also mentioned, now if I'm going to make others happy and then feel happy, chances are I'm also expending energy making them happy, and they may or may not feel happy. I can't guarantee that. And I may feel worse because, hey, they didn't feel happy. I put in so much effort into making them happy, and they're absolutely unhappy. And I'm not good enough. I'm a failure. I can't do enough. It may just be that in that moment, you don't have the bandwidth. And if you don't look after yourself, no one's going to really know, right? So if you're depressed, ideally seek help. And if you're not seeking help, help yourself first and then go help others.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
as diplomatic as I can be.
As digressing a little bit from triggers and managing trauma, just in terms of what we're talking about now, which is self-care. Where do you draw the line between self-care and selfishness? Because I ask because I know I'm conscious, like constantly worried that I'm going to become burdensome to somebody else when I need their help. And at the same time, I know people who are exhausting to be around because they constantly need my help. And so where do you draw the line between not burdening somebody else, and wanting to help someone else, but like maintaining that balance of not going too far down either route?
Right. So that's a really good question because I get that so often with people saying self-care is selfish. And it's such a common thing. And I'm just like, no, it is not selfish, right? Because self-care is also something you need for you. And sometimes it's too exhausting to self-care because you need someone to just give that to you. That's why I say therapist, at least you know for sure that is that person's job. They will give it to you regardless, right? But ideally, to be able to open up to someone whom you know, whom you trust, and someone who can hold that space for you without judgment. For example, let's say you speak to a friend, and if that friend in that moment is just like, Urvashi, get over it, it's not a big deal, that is not a friend you turn to. You turn to the buddy who's just like, hey, I'm here for you, I've got your back. Whatever it is, I will slay dragons for you. Of course, that's not really what you probably need, but in that moment, it makes you feel good enough, right? And generally, the emotional vampires, as we call them, the friends that seem burdensome. So, with them, what I've noticed is generally it's a venting session. You are seen as empathetic, you will understand them. I will vent to you, and in that moment, you will take my venting because you can take it and you know what to say. You know the right things to say. So generally in that moment, like I do have friends who are just like, hey, you're the therapist, right? Like this is the thing you do. So I'm just asking you, like, what do you think? And in that moment, I'm like, hey, person first. And I really, really appreciate that you think this is important, except right now I've had a long day and I really can't give you the response you need. Draw a solid boundary, right? And
Yeah.
also limit time and call amount with them. But
Yeah.
also another thing is when you need somebody to also say, is this that person whom I can trust? Like, who is your person? Whom do you turn to? Whom you say 100%, whether you're happy or sad, they love you the way you are. Whether you're angry, venting, ranting, moaning, they have your back without the judgment. And for me, that is the most important thing in a friend. That person whom I can turn to, who will not look at me saying, but you're a therapist, you kind of know this already. Like, no,
Yeah.
boss,
I
when you
know.
are my
Because you
friend,
just
that
need to
does
get it
not
out
come
of
into
you.
play. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
am a human being too.
Yeah. And I think I saw
So,
one of your
yeah.
posts that said, therapists also go to therapy. Like therapists
Yeah.
need therapists. And I can
Yeah.
completely understand that because as you said, you're hearing so much and you need to get it out
Yeah.
of your head and you have your own life's frustrations and things
Yeah.
like that. So, and as you said, you can't always self-soothe. You can't always
Yeah.
be the one
And
giving yourself.
sometimes it's nice to have that person hold that space for you where you don't have to hold it for everyone, right? You go, whether you're a hot mess or a not so hot mess, you're just like, this is my space. I can say whatever. I can swear if I need to, cry if I need to, just like talk
Yeah.
about cartoons if I need to. That
Yeah.
actually happened once. It was good fun.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, where we were reliving like old cartoons and saying, this is so interesting. We were talking
Yeah.
about some drawing and art therapy and it just changed. But
Nostalgia is
yeah,
always a great like jandu balm for me.
yeah,
Just go through some old
completely.
pictures and be like, life is not as bad as it seems. There's another
And there's
question.
always that comfort thing there.
Yeah. And we always look back on memories and only remember the good stuff. So I like that.
Yeah,
There's another
hopefully.
question here.
Other people
Yeah.
pay attention. So go back to happy memories, not the bad ones.
Yeah.
So,
Another question here from Disha, which says, does a trigger have to be repetitive in nature, like the red scenario? Can you be triggered around some people and their incompetence? I think you can be irritated by incompetence, but can you be triggered by incompetence?
incompetence, I'm not sure in what way she has been triggered by it. I'm not sure. But let's say there's somebody who, let's say a narcissistic partner, sibling, child, whatever, right? Now, they may have different ways of triggering you. It may not, their incompetence in this case may be from the general lack of not offering help and just being there. Now, if you look at that as incompetence, for sure it can be triggering because you know you want their help, you're asking for it, and repeatedly they're just saying no, right? But here I'm very specifically talking about narcissism. I'm not talking about the general populace, right? But of course, that can be irritating if you have somebody and you're like, boss, please do, please do, please do. I don't know if it would be as triggering unless there's a really bad experience with a human. But if the intensity is that bad, it might be useful to also check if there are other traits that are causing that level of intensity, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, triggers are generally repetitive.
Okay. And I think, as you said, like journaling is such a good way to identify what's actually
Mm.
bothering you because you might be
Yeah,
annoyed by something might annoy you, but it might actually just be,
something entirely
provoking
different.
something completely different. You
Yeah,
might be completely like
yeah.
irritated with something else. Oh, on that note, there's a there's a comment here that says, at times I explode and act emotionally around people, even for simple things, which makes me regret it later. Is this because I'm triggered?
It could be, I just saw that too. So it could be because you are triggered. It doesn't necessarily have to be because you are triggered. It could just be that you're emotionally overwhelmed, right? So now that's an important distinction. That's a really good question. But say, for example, someone has had a really long day. They finished a long day of work. They come home, and with COVID going on, you don't have a maid, so you have to cook, you have to clean. It's just annoying. Your cat probably steals your dinner, right? In that moment, you're really going to want to shoot the cat, whether you love your cat or not, because you ate my dinner, right?
Yeah.
Now, feeling angry at your cat in that moment, knowing fully well you absolutely love the creature, does not mean you're being triggered by the creature, but it just means in that moment you are emotionally overwhelmed, right? But being triggered would be if there's something that's constantly repeating and taking you back to something that was traumatic. Traumatic is the key word here, right? Going back to a past trauma, something that was difficult, something that was hard to sit with. It's not necessarily something that is irritating you as much as something, it could trigger irritation, but it doesn't mean triggering in the traumatic sense,
Okay.
right? Like
There's,
some people get triggered by people slurping their tea, that's such a common one.
yeah.
And people slurp their tea, there are people who are just like, oh, I cannot stand that, stop it immediately.
Yeah.
I can see your reaction to it.
But that's just
So-
irritation. That's not a traumatic trigger.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
an irritation because multiple people may be slurping their tea, but it's just irritating for you rather than being traumatic.
Yeah. So please,
Or
ladies and
triggering.
gentlemen, and all other genders, please draw the line between annoyance / irritation
Yes.
and actually being triggered and having to, without consent, relive a traumatic experience. So let's make that clear. Now, actually, I was just thinking about a completely somewhat unrelated thing where, for our merchandise ideas, don't shoot the cat. Would be a great t-shirt.
Please don't. Really,
Don't shoot
it's
the
like that. Yeah, really, you have no idea. I say that thing, no, where the husband comes home angry, he yells at the wife beats the kid. And I'm like, it doesn't stop there. Kid probably bites the maid will kick the dog, and then the dog will eat the mat. Now, if you need to remove all of that, go throw cushions in your room at a wall, let the anger out, and then go interact with people. Right?
Yeah.
Rather than throw your anger at someone in the first place, journal it out, tear paper if you need to, something that isn't causing you harm or causing someone else harm. Now, if you throw cushions in someone's vicinity, well, clearly that is going to trigger them because that seems like violent behavior. But if you're in your own room, throwing cushions at a wall, taking your frustration out, that can be completely healthy, as long as you're not hurting yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
Right? No breaking windows and punching walls.
Yeah, tearing old newspapers is a thing that I have done often, and it is quite satisfying.
Liberating.
Yeah, definitely.
Completely.
Now, let's say a friend calls me and says, I just saw this post and it's brought back this horrible memory. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling overwhelmed. How do I help them?
So ideally, the best way is to ask them what's going on and to self-soothe, right? Now, they will be able to self-soothe. You can ask them, see, in that moment, a client, like in this case, I'm using a client. If a client calls me and says, Leanne, what do I do? Now, I can't say do this, this, this. I may send them something that is relevant, but me saying do this does not mean it is their need. So generally what I say is, let's take a moment. You are feeling overwhelmed. It is scary. It is terrifying, right? Validate the emotion. After you validate the emotion, what is the person's need? If you were to feel that way, you would feel something. But are they feeling the same thing? What is it that they need in that moment? They may just be calling you because they want someone to listen empathetically. So my general response is to listen empathetically. And then when they seem a little calmer, to say, how else can I help you? What would you like from me? Right? I remember I was having a bit of a hard day once and I came home and a friend had sent me flowers. Now, I really didn't know I needed flowers. Right? And I got these flowers and it's from a really good female friend. And I was just like, oh my God, I hadn't even thought. She just knew I was having a hard day. And she sent me flowers and I was just like, this is adorable, right? I didn't know I needed it. And on a normal day, I may not even have got them for myself. But just having that, like those small gestures, being there you may not be able to be there for them in a way they need, but being there for them in a way that is actually you being there for them most often counts. So that's what matters.
That reminds me of a friend of mine who lives in the US. She sent me a plant because she's like, I know I can't be there and I haven't been there, but here is a plant for your room. So it's sort of
Name
like,
it after me and I'm forever with
yeah,
you.
yeah. So it's
Yeah, that's
my
amazing.
goal now is to make sure that plant does not die because I have killed my share of succulents. How do you kill a succulent, Leanne? How does one kill a succulent? Anyway, I'm going to
You want a real
hopefully.
secret? I have still not cracked a succulent. Right now, I am growing tomatoes. I'm growing multiple plants from seedlings. I am growing, I have a herb garden, and I still don't know how to look after a succulent. I
Okay,
honest
that
to
makes me
goodliness,
feel a lot
I
better.
have Googled it, I have tried, and I really don't. I don't, I mean, I like them. I do have some.
Yeah.
I like them, but I'm just like, I don't know if I'm giving you enough water or sunlight because you're a very confusing kind of
I think we
plant.
both gave it too much water. That's what I've been told.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
think so too, because mine got a little bit sad. So,
we've gone taken a left turn, so we'll come back. There's another question
right.
here. Is it good to discuss your triggers with people who are close to you? How do you do it in a way that where you're not sounding like you're giving excuses for might have happened from an earlier trigger? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's fantastic actually, because yes, please tell people closest to you about your triggers if you are feeling safe and comfortable. My caveat for this entire conversation is people who are safe, comfortable, trustworthy. If you do not believe that they are safe enough to know your deepest, darkest secrets, do not trust them with this information, right? But is it nice to inform somebody that something is triggering? Yes, because to a large extent they can avoid doing it. And if you can have that much reduced, especially with people in your close circle, there's absolutely nothing like it, right? So ideally, to give yourself that safe space where you're saying this triggers me, ideally don't. And I've done that with a lot of my clients where I say whomever in your environment is triggering you but is also close to you, if you feel safe to them, please inform them, because they may not know, like someone who's been abused may not know that they don't want to be hugged even if it's from a parent, right? But to put it out there saying, hey, I love you, I cannot explain why I do not want to be hugged, but I just do not want to be hugged, right? And that's enough. They will respect it because they care. Some may ask you the question and say, but why, but why? And in that moment, to say, I really don't have an explanation. And you can say, no, you don't have to explain your triggers. You don't ever have to justify yourself. To just say, I don't want to talk about it, but I don't want to be hugged. Right? There are certain days I really don't want to be hugged, and there's no reason for it. It's just that I'm too tired to be given a hug, and I'm just like, no physical contact. Like, just let me be. And that's okay. You don't need to justify it
Yeah,
ever.
I think what you said about like some people who will ask like, but why, but why? That's happened to me where I tried confiding in someone who I'd known for over a year about a certain instance, and I said, this is what happened to me, so I really don't like being in such and such situation. And they said, yeah, but like, why does it bother you? And like, why are you overreacting to it, etc.
Hmm.
So now, if once you're in that situation, what's the best way to navigate that conversation? Because for me, I just get overwhelmed and I'll just cry, and then they're
Well,
like, I don't know what I
did
did.
not expect that overreaction, no,
Yeah,
because that's like next level. The minute they
yeah,
see tears, it is an overreaction.
yeah. So
I
how
hate
would
those
I
situations,
explain
like
that?
in all honesty.
Yeah.
So, and what I say generally is when someone is in the, and I've done this too, right? When I'm overwhelmed, if someone says, don't feel like that, I'm like, boss, you are allowed to feel however you feel. And as much as I'm saying, don't be vicious about it. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be nasty about it. But to say, in this moment, I really, really do not want to have to justify why I'm feeling a certain way. But the fact is, I am feeling a certain way, right? So validate yourself. And when you validate yourself, when you own it, it's very hard for them to dispute it, because in that moment you're reiterating that this is my story. I don't want to have to answer it, clear boundary, but I do love you. And if you don't get it, I'd like to come back at a time when I'm not feeling overwhelmed. Right now, I am feeling overwhelmed and I need to look after myself. And it's
Very.
okay to ask that. And worst case, if you lose a friend over this, please understand that that friend didn't really get you to begin with. And sometimes that's the worst part, right? Because you really hope that friend gets you. And when that friend doesn't get you, there's nothing like it. And you're just like, but you're my best friend, or you're such a great friend. And I trusted you with the greatest part of my heart. And in that moment, to say, I am grieving. But if I can hold space for me and realize that I need to look after myself rather than, pander to someone else, feel worse, and then self soothe not just 1x, but probably 10 or 12x, because I've sat there people pleasing till I'm burnt out, then you'd rather just say, for now, I'm taking a break, and when I feel ready, I will come back.
Yeah, I think that's definitely
So,
happened to me because, I have anxiety, depression, borderline personality
mhm.
disorder. Been diagnosed, been on and off the meds, I'm working at it. But of course, there are days when, I'm not together. Like I don't have it together.
Right.
And I've tried explaining, specifically with like romantic relationships, I've tried explaining that I need time and space to self-soothe, to handle it on my own, to calm down and come back.
Right.
But then, there are people who see it as being pushed away. That, why aren't you letting me help you? I want to help you.
Those types.
You're not letting
Yes.
me help you. So that's one instance. I've also gotten the everything I say seems to be wrong. So I don't know what to do right. Like I'm not a therapist. I don't know why you're expecting me to handle everything perfectly. So to someone who has underlying conditions, to someone who's aware of their triggers and who's trying to set these boundaries, if you're constantly being told that what you're doing is wrong, then Harik, how do you handle that?
So, to start off by saying, hey, in this moment, I'm not looking at you as my therapist. I'm telling you as a friend because I'm explaining my struggles to you. I don't need you to help me. Now, that's a really good one, because that's why I said, those type of people, because they want to fix it. They want to help you without realizing it's coming from themselves, right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, you are feeling this and it's coming from everywhere else because, hey, I need to help you because I have my own stuff. But in this moment, it's not about you anymore. It's about me helping you. And sometimes that person really doesn't want to be helped. They just want to be heard. And if like someday I'm going to start a school for this, people learn to listen. I mean, this is the smallest part of it, which is people just want to be heard effectively, without the judgment, without the drama, without the solutions. Like, stop the solutions. People know deep down what they want, right? Even therapy, a lot of people say, what is your advice? We don't advise. That's part of our ethic. We do not give you advice. We are there to work with your situation, take it further based on your individual story, and find ways to help you empower yourself. The idea isn't to create a dependency. It is to give that power back to you, to say you've got it. On days you don't have it, you still have it because you're looking after yourself your best way. So for people who feel the need to hold space for you, to also say, hey, what I'd really like from you in this moment is to listen to me. I understand you want to help me, but I also know how to help myself. I just need someone to listen, right? Put your need out there very sweetly if you want to, politely, cordially, always helps, but to put it out there. Like, I have friends who look at me and say, but you're a therapist. How do I help you? And I'm like, I am a therapist in my professional life. When I come home, I am a person with real life problems. Sometimes me burning my pie is probably the biggest issue that I have. It may not be a big issue to the rest of the world, but I really wanted to eat that pie. And I burnt it. And I don't have the energy to order another one. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it's just disappointment on that day. It may not be even the pie's fault. It may be everything else. But to take that moment and say, if I want to feel bad about the pie, I can feel bad without you feeling pressure to order me a pie or fix it for me or hold space, because what does one do? It only a pie. And to just say, I'm here, I listen, the world sucks some days and that's okay. You tell me all about it. I'm here for you. Just say, I'm here for you, right?
Yeah. You know what I love doing in situations like this, when I just want to get it out of my system and not actually get the solution? Voice notes. Because then you can just record a monologue for 10 minutes.
Zero interruption.
No interruption. And then, by the time the person sees it and listens to all 10 minutes of it and gets back to you, you're also in a better place.
They've forgotten half of it.
You've forgotten half of it. So I really use WhatsApp voice notes.
That's fantastic.
Instagram voice notes. Facebook also has it now. Just record a monologue and send it into the universe.
That is perfect. Plus, you get it out there.
Yeah.
Right? So it's perfect. That journaling, oh my God. Also, sorry, I wanted to address this at some point. I saw a question where someone had asked about, can we reread our journals? Is it okay to reread journals? Ideally, please do not. Because if you're writing about stuff that bothers you, you do not want to go back and feel re-bothered and re-triggered by it, because let it go sometimes. It's okay. Like, I have 3 different journals. I have one where I write my hopes and dreams. Don't go back to it as much, but if I have an idea I really need to work on, I'll probably flip through. One which is gratitude. Please, everybody, write gratitude journals. That is fantastic. You too.
Gratitude journal.
I don't know where mine is, but it's somewhere here. Yes.
So
there is nothing. I love it. Also, is it holographic? It is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's holographic, the thing.
Oh, this is so fun. Oh, that is so cool. It looks like a fish.
My mom said, yeah.
Yeah, see, those are really great. And that you can reread any number of times. On a bad day, there's nothing like that, right?
Yeah.
And as for the last one, I generally tell clients, if you do not, and even for myself, right, on a day I'm feeling not so great, I write out all my stuff. If I want to, like, I'm obviously never going to reread it because that's not my practice. But suppose it's such an intense thing and I don't want anyone to see it, God forbid. Also, I don't know if you know, I have really bad handwriting from school. No, I have really bad
My
handwriting.
handwriting
So,
is still terrible. It was not good.
yeah, mine was just never happened. Though I did win quite a few prizes for it when I wanted to. 45 minutes, write 3 sentences. Yes.
Then you can win.
So, yeah, but given a choice, my books cannot be read. But what I say is, if you're writing stuff that you don't want anyone else to see, tear it up. If you're being safe about it, maybe even burn it. If you want to throw it in the dustbin, there's nothing like it. So sometimes, like I had a client once who wrote, he was writing something very emotional. And obviously, we weren't going to get into details of it, but he wrote it all down. It was about 5 pages. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to tear it. So he tore it. Then he jumped on it and then he collected it. And there's a garbage dump at the top of my road. And we went there and threw it there. And it was just such a relieving feeling for him because he's like, now it's going with the garbage. I don't ever have to see it, feel it, whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes that itself is liberating. So please don't reread journals unless they are positive.
Yeah.
So just answering that one question.
No, actually, speaking of questions, we only have about like less than 10 minutes left. So let's go through a couple more questions.
Yeah.
Is it ever possible to get over PTSD or CPTSD? I've tried. What is CPTSD?
Complex.
Okay.
So complex trauma.
Okay, sorry.
Chronic complex.
I've tried 2 therapy programs, but they didn't work. Medication works, but only a little bit. Is there hope?
100% yes. I work with this on a regular basis. In fact, about 80 to 90% of my clientele is this. And there is hope. Now, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Especially complex trauma takes a really long time because you're not just dealing with one incident, you're dealing with multiple incidents across time. And in that case, you're dealing with multiple triggers, multiple people, multiple situations. But you don't have to look at it as tackling multiple things when you go in for therapy. Find a therapist who will work with patterns, right? Because invariably there are patterns to it. And instead of going situation by situation by situation, which feels like the rest of your life in therapy, to at least say, track your progress. I have gotten over this part. Like say someone who's had a very rough childhood may have the same adult patterns where they pick partners who are similar to their childhood. Not because they intentionally want to do it, but because that's how it, like you do say this is familiar, I may not want it, but because it's familiar, I understand it, right? And I'm attracted to it only because it's something familiar to me. Now, in that case, it may feel like, oh, I'm just giving up on life because there's nothing to it. But when you start identifying what the patterns were, what were the similarities in your childhood and your adult life, or whenever the trauma had happened, what are the similarities in your behavior? You don't have to do it all at once. But ideally realizing it is a gradual process. Therapy, whether you have trauma or zero trauma, it is still a gradual process, but there is hope in it because we are looking towards healing. So I've not put this yet on Instagram, but I'm going to do it here today. So one of the things I tell my clients in therapy is like a sine curve, right? It starts off really great because we work to teach you all self-care, coping mechanisms, the best things first because that's our SOS. That's your anesthesia before we do surgery. Right? And then we get to the heavy part where everyone's floundering around saying, what is happening? Why did we do this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just down from there. But that's not really, I see how you're relating to this. No, it's a fact. It's genuinely that because, in that part, you totally understand it because you're feeling overwhelmed because, hey, I could have done all of this. But all of this that you could have done, you have just learned, right? You didn't know it back then. And that overwhelm is natural. But when you so the last part of the curve is when you realize you have this and you have this, you sort of put this thing into perspective where it starts becoming a smoother journey where you're learning to self-care while understanding patterns and being in the moment and changing them, right? The empowerment comes from changing them, which may not come overnight, but even the smallest progress, learning to say no, right? Being assertive, yes to yourself, all of that is progress. And it may take a while, but it isn't impossible. And any degree, and this is my personal belief, any degree of progress, however tiny it is, even if it's 0.01%, it is still 0.01%.
Yeah.
Right? And that matters. That matters. So, like I have a friend who says, I went 5 steps forward and 3 steps back. And I'm like, that's still 2 steps forward. My math is not very good. but I think I got that right, right?
Yeah.
Still 2 steps forward. So, and that matters, that really matters.
Yeah.
So, yes, there is hope.
I think that I definitely relate to what you said about the dip that comes afterwards, because I
Yeah,
remember going through like a very shaky period about 6 months after I started therapy.
right.
And because, as you said, you're healing from so many things and you're going one after the other. So for
Yeah,
each area that you need to improve, it has its own sine wave. And
yeah,
so
yeah,
sometimes it feels like I'm slipping back and everything's shifting around me. But it is getting better. So I think that's something
yeah,
also people expect from therapy, is that immediately it's going to start fixing your life.
yeah,
Part of fixing your life is having, as you said, having to say no, having to draw boundaries, having to potentially cut some people out. And that's
yeah,
going to be difficult. You're going to have to rip some band-aids. But
yeah.
overall, in
And
the
it
long run,
hurts. You'll be grieving also while you're cutting them off, even though you don't want to be grieving. But
yeah,
that's part of it, right? Learning to enjoy the rain, the thunder, and saying, ha, it's okay, it's raining, it's
yeah,
thunderous, whatever. And sometimes it's just nice to have it outside of you.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a follow-up from Srinivas who asked the question about PTSD. Sometimes I feel getting professional advice only meant getting a label and not much help. Doesn't have to
Okay,
be.
so yeah, so essentially it doesn't have to be. So one of the ways I work is regardless of, so clients come in saying, I want a diagnosis or I have a diagnosis. And I'm not belittling anyone with a diagnosis when I say this, I'm being very clear about it. The diagnosis is just one part of it, right? It is always just one part because the consequences of the diagnosis are things that you need to work with. That is the coping mechanisms, that is the healing, and that is the growth. Because for as long as you have your label here, you're looking at it from a labeled perspective. It is massively triggering. But when you start saying, hey, this is it bothers me on another level, but there are also other things where I'm excelling on another level. I'm making my own difference. I'm creating my own space, and to explore that as well. So you look at your diagnosis as part of a larger scheme of things that you can also work alongside, right?
Yeah,
That is there. That may not be going anywhere. It may be going somewhere, but that alongside everything else. So to fit it in, saying it is part of me, but it isn't all of me, right? And
yeah.
as for client, sorry, one more. So
Yeah, no, I just
as
wanted to give you a heads up that we have
yes,
exactly 2 minutes left, so I didn't want to interrupt you later. Yeah,
yes,
I know it's gone by
thank
so quick.
you. I know this was so fun. But with regard to that, not every therapist diagnoses. In fact, we look at it as a perspective of healing. Very often, things like CPTSD and PTSD itself are looked at as diagnostics for depressive disorders. It doesn't have to be. So, the way I look at it is there are two types of depression. You have the clinical depression, which is something that's caused by neurotransmitters. You have situational depression caused by situations that have led you to feel a certain way. So if you figure out what it is, start working through it, start finding healthier coping mechanisms. It doesn't have to be about the diagnosis, right? You just have to find that person who fits you and work with them. That's
Team neurotransmitters, what's up,
yes,
Annie?
always. Yes, always. Oh,
Yeah,
it really breaks my heart when people are like, but why? And I'm like insulin, like diabetes,
yeah,
right?
like
It
anything.
is part of it, and yeah,
I feel like this 1
100% team
hour
neurotransmitters.
was like the tip of the iceberg, and I feel like we should definitely do this again, if you're
Yes,
up
I
for
am
it.
completely open.
Now,
Yes, I
before
love
this
it.
thing kicks us off unceremoniously, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining and for basically giving us a free sample into the like of the work that you do.
No, no, I
And
love it.
yeah, to people like Srinivas who are finding it difficult to get the right help that they need, you have Leanne now. I don't know if you're taking on new
So
clients
sweet.
and
Thanks.
advertising.
Thank you. Worst case, my page is there and I will point you in the right direction. So
Yes.
that is there. But
Thank
thank
you
you
for
for
all the
having
work that
me and thank
you
you for
do.
all the questions. This has been so amazing. I'm totally open to doing another if you'd like.
Okay,
So
sounds
this was
good.
really great. Thank you.
22
Are
seconds
they kicking
remaining.
us off?
Yeah, so this will be on my
Yes.
profile if you ever need to look at it again
Yes.
or point people
Thank
here.
you. Thank
Thank you,
you all.
Leanne. Have a
And
good
you,
night.
Rishi. Thank you. See you.
Happy
Take care.
Sunday.
Good night. You too.
Bye.
Enjoy yourself. Bye. Bye.
Bye. This is gonna cut off in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Three.
Like New Year.